One of the things they love talking about in America is how blacks are mass incarcerated. But one thing they fail to tell you is the number one woman incarcerated in America is white women. And this is something they do not talk about at all, but it is indeed going on. And you can see the numbers go up every single year for white women going to jail. This is a story that actually came out May 12th, 2018. White women addicted, incarcerated, and overlooked. And this came out in New Haven Register, and I'll leave the link to this article in the description box. As the country battles drug plagues, mass incarceration, and nationwide addiction, the people being increasingly infected by these issues are being left behind in the discussion. They are white women. Men and their behaviors have gotten the attention, especially when it comes down to drinking and substance use treatment. We've concentrated on the noisy person, but women had to keep things quiet because they were holding things together. Certainly not expected to have addiction problems. Across the country, middle-aged white women are dying at higher rates, particularly from drug overdoses, suicides, and excessive drinking. Believe it or not, do you guys realize that alcoholism is actually decreasing among blacks? Black people are not drinking heavy, not even as much as they did even 20 years ago. It's really dropping among the Black community. Alcohol-related deaths for white women have increased 130% in the last 2 decades, far surpassing alcohol-related deaths for Hispanic women, which climbed 27%, or for Black women, which decreased 12%, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. I don't know why y'all putting Hispanic women in a separate category. You count them as white on the US Census, but when it comes down to negative things, I notice you always want to throw them in a separate category, but they are white according to your census. So you really should add that 27% to the 130%. That would be more accurate. Suicide rates for all women are among the sharpest increases compared to other demographics, according to the CDC. And drug poisoning was the most frequent method. From 1999 to 2014, the suicide rates for females rose 45%. And that was primarily among white women. They're really committing the most suicide out of the females that are here in this country. While rates for males increased 16%, the increases are more pronounced in age groups 25 to 50 years old. Further, white women are increasingly binge drinking, suffering from addiction, being incarcerated, and committing suicide. A number of combining factors make this population unique when addressing these issues, especially their status, stereotypes, and cultural expectations. When looking at who's being affected by the ongoing opioid plague, it's disproportionately white women. One factor is their access to medication, and that's true. You know, when it came down to prescribing the meds, Black people, they didn't want to give us anything beyond a week. When it came down to whites, they got astronomical amounts, 400 and 500 pills at one pop. And we didn't get it like that. So we never had access to opioids in order to become that addicted to the drug in the first place. Remember, they had the belief we didn't feel pain, they feel pain, which is ridiculous. They are more likely than women of other races, and this is white women, to be prescribed opiate medications, according to the Washington Post analysis of middle-aged participants in a National Health and Nutrition Examination survey. Look at the population that has the access to the healthcare, that got the drugs into the houses, and who was that population. And that was probably the white population at large. It was. Who are you more suspicious of as a provider? It is a housewife or a black man, which is stupid because, that's all because of racism. I don't know why they're looking at black men when it comes down to opioids. That's not where your eyes should be. Racism lead to thinking that white women are safe. It's seen as they don't have problems, which is phony. You know what? Those of us that are wide awake know you're full of crap. We don't see it that way. Jacqueline Lucy Bello was the last person that anybody, okay, is just talking about somebody with substance abuse. So I'm just going to skip down from that. A decade ago, the medication market was overflooded with opioid prescriptions. Access to health care, status, and race all made it easy for white women, such as Lucy Bello, to get drugs. But as prescribers became more aware of abuse, the pills were in shorter supply for those addicted. Well, see, you know what they did, ladies and gentlemen, whenever they couldn't get enough pills from one doctor, they went doctor shopping. They went to a bunch of different doctors and got different scripts and took them to different pharmacies. And that went on for a long time. Now, some of the states are wising up and they're catching on to it. In some states to this day, they don't have a database to match up people taking that same script to different pharmacies. Many white women who were getting drugs legally as prescriptions then began to seek out illegal means to continue the high. As Lucy Bello's tolerance for the pills increased, so did her using and the level of dosage in each pill. She started using more and more to get through the day. But after a couple of months of getting refills, Lucy Bello's doctor stopped prescribing the Percocet, and she began buying them on the streets, which was expensive. One 30 milligram Percocet cost $25. Damn, that's for one pill? Ooh. Mm. All right, and she was doing 10 pills a day for 2 years. That's a lot of damn pills to be doing for 2 years. When she couldn't sustain her addiction to pills, Lucy Bello checked herself into the South Central Rehabilitation Center, where she initially met her then boyfriend, who introduced her to heroin. And they said they do more drugs in rehab than they do outside on the streets. When someone comes out of detox, they feel sick without taking drugs again, she said. It's worse. The worst of it is over, but you still can't sleep. You can't eat. She said, I just wanted a break for a night. She started to try heroin because it was so much cheaper and easily accessible, and it went on from there. So she became addicted to the heroin. One thing I learned years ago, it's not good to have negative things in common with other people. You may think that's a good thing, but actually it's not. Because just like in their case, they're both drug addicts. One is always going to turn the other one to drugs once again. It always happens that way. Always. Okay, so believe it or not, normally women become addicted to drugs a lot easier than men do. That was something I even learned when I was growing up. Okay, and because of how women are raised culturally, we're caretakers and often it's hard for it's hard for anybody to be in a family situation, and I'm just talking and have substance abuse going on. You know, it's a very difficult thing, even having somebody in your house, because they literally disrupt life for everybody. It doesn't even matter if children are in the house. They disrupt life for everybody in the household. And it's hard when you have a woman, and in many cases, they have children. And a lot of times when they have substance abuse, these women will disappear for days and even weeks, leaving their children behind for other people to care for until they decide to come back home. And that happens a lot. Okay, I'm just going to go down a little. Arrest warrants for property crimes started coming August 2009, one after another. Every time Lucy Bello was charged, she was released on a promise to appear in court. You see that? I tell you what, if she was Black, she would never have been released on a promise. She would have been sitting in that jail until the court date, which she never did. Before being sentenced a year later to prison, Lucy Bello had 25 open cases of larceny and burglary. 25 cases, which means she did a lot of robbing, y'all, in order to satisfy her drug addiction. And that's one thing, and I've said this in many of my past videos, whenever they have an addiction, ladies and gentlemen, they run out of money. They run out of money. And once they run out of money, that's when these addicts will turn to crime. They'll start breaking in houses to try to get merchandise to sell on the street, or they'll just straight up start robbing pharmacies, banks, grocery stores is another big one that addicts rob. And it just goes from there. And these people will commit armed robbery. These are not addicts that are robbing unarmed. In many cases, they are fully armed with a gun. At no point did anyone in court say, this girl is out of her mind. She keeps getting arrested with this guy, and they need to go somewhere. Mary Bello said her addiction sent her to York Correctional Facility, recalling that nearly all the women she encountered there was because of addiction. Yeah, see, no matter how hard they try to keep these drug addicts out of jail, technically, they really can't do it. Because as soon as they don't have money and they start craving for the drug, they turn to crime. There is no way around it. She spent 3 years in prison, during which time she gave birth to her son. She has since been clean and is a leader in the New Haven Women's Resettlement Work Group, which she helps women resettle into the community after incarceration. Misdiagnosed or undiagnosed substance abuse has led to white women having the highest rates of binge drinking, being disproportionately affected by the opioid plague, becoming the fastest growing prison population, and committing suicide. See, this is what I'm telling you. They are always talking about Black men going to jail, but these white women are literally being mass incarcerated because they're committing so many crimes because of their drug addiction. But see, don't feel bad for them, because during the crack epidemic, we told people because of the crack, that's why crime was high in the Black community. They blew it off and didn't want to hear anything. They want to believe that you're just inherently violent. Now that white women are going to jail in high numbers and it's because of the drug, are they inherently violent now? I bet you won't go around saying that, but it's the circumstances are exactly the same. But, of course, it's something different. We know how you roll. Since 1980, The female prison population has increased 700%, according to the Sentencing Project, while Black and Hispanic women are still imprisoned at a higher rate than white women. The trend is reversing. In fact, I did an article about a year ago where it says most Black women in jail are being released. And those cells are now filling up fast with white women. Okay. The rate of imprisonment for Black women has declined, listen to this, has declined 47% between 2000 and 2014. So Black women are not going to jail nearly as much as we did even a decade ago. Black women are not going to jail in high numbers. Not anymore. So it has declined 47% among Black women, while the rate of imprisonment for Hispanic women rose 7%. And imprisonment, listen to this, imprisonment for white women rose 56% and continues its climb. And it's the most silent thing, silent secret in America. This white woman going to jail more than any other female in this country. So the only one that had a decrease in incarceration are Black women. Hispanic women and white women, which should really be in the same category, it rose. Crimes for which women are sentenced most are property and drug crimes combined. They make up 42% of sentences for women. In 1986, 12% of women in state prisons were incarcerated for a drug offense. But by 2014, it was 24%. Often property crimes are connected with drug use and committed to sustain the addiction, Lucy Bellows said. Every single white woman was there behind bars. So every white woman, they were saying, behind bars when she was in prison were opioid addicts. That's what she's saying. Especially those in their 20s, 30s, and early 40s. Jessica Santangelo, 28, was incarcerated on a charge related to stealing money for a heroin addiction. All of this happened during the crack epidemic, y'all. Crack addicts were doing the same thing. But they only had one kind of court for crack addicts, and that was criminal court. These folks go to drug court. Okay. Everyone had mental illness and substance abuse issues. Okay, I'm just going to skip down because they're just talking about this girl's life. All right, so just go down here to diagnosis and treatment. Women tend to be underdiagnosed with substance abuse disorder because they don't typically present symptoms as their primary issue during doctor visits. So I guess they're good at faking the funk when they're in front of the doctors. More often than they're presenting with psychosocial and mental health issues, and the substance abuse is never discovered. Even when women do show signs of drug or alcohol abuse, parents and doctors often focus on other mental health issues instead. Sometimes they don't want to see it. Sometimes the signs are obvious, but they don't want to see it. They can't handle it. When Santangelo was trying to get help as a teen for her substance use, everybody wanted to treat me for depression or a mental illness instead of substance abuse, especially being younger, she said, around 13 or 14 years old when I really needed it and was trying to put me in psych hospitals instead of substance treatment. So she was trying to get help for herself, but nobody would believe she had a substance abuse problem. Her parents didn't want to believe she had a drug problem. See, there you go. They didn't want to see it, so they act like it wasn't there, although the obvious signs were there. In contrast, men more often disclose a substance use disorder or more readily admit to one because the impact on their lives tend to be much less. It could explain why 1/3 of people suffering from addiction are women, but only make up 1 in 5 people in treatment, she says. Addiction treatment wasn't designed for women in the first place. We haven't been thinking about them as a special population needing special care or a unique style of treatment in terms of their substance abuse until the late decade. So women are going to be overlooked and not seen as having problems. The disparity may be because women often need to overcome social barriers and stigma just to get into treatment for addiction. The identity of a woman and her role in society is the first one. The societal cost of being a female addicted is great. Adding women who are suffering from addiction have a lot more to lose socially than men. Women have a harder time finding treatment because of everything they have going on at home or because they're scared. Women are supposed to hold it together, take care of their kids, take care of their family. To admit you have an issue, especially with addiction, is just a hard thing to do. While women roles in society have evolved from being sole housewives and mothers, there's still a stigma with women being domesticated and doing no wrong. All right. And she's just talking about losing custody of her kids and all that. And that happens to Black women as well that are addicted to drugs. Identity of all women is compromised in society if she can't be a caretaker or hold her life together as expected. It's powerful enough to stop women from seeking treatment. Drugs are not the only substance abuse women deal with, though. A vast number of white women drink excessively to a point that it is considered alcoholism, but the culture doesn't call it that. Excessive drinking or binge drinking for women is defined as having 4 or more drinks in 2 hours. 1/3 of white women report binge drinking, according to the National Health Interview Survey. I have to tell y'all, back when I used to go to clubs back in the day or bars, they used to always be the biggest ones drunk. And many times when I would see women that could barely walk because they had so much alcohol, it would always be white women. I've seen that. The rate has gone up 40% in the last 20 years, while it has remained flat for other demographics. So it hasn't gone up as much for other women. Binge drinking is a form of addiction that's not taken seriously as a harmful behavior. Okay. Images of women drinking to access to have been normalized. You know what? To be honest with you, drugs in this country has been normalized. I mean, if you notice, ever since Trump put together that opioid commission, you barely hear anything now. You don't hear nothing about it. You know, it was more hoopla in 2017 than this year. You don't hardly hear anything about what they're doing, if they're distributing money what's going on with that? You don't hear nothing. I think that it's gotten so bad with drugs in America, it's really normalized. They have normalized drug addiction in this country. It just seems that way. Social media memes use women drinking as a punchline for humor, marketing wine, a cure all for women, stress relief, and lifeline. Binge drinking in college, especially, is not only normalized, but expected of young women. So the issue doesn't get noticed until years later during middle age. I'm not really surprised. Just going down there, just talking about college drinking. Women are affected differently. Yeah, because, physically women are different, you know. Um, so, alcohol does affect us differently than men. It takes fewer drinks for women to get intoxicated than it does for men. Their blood alcohol levels climb faster and stay elevated longer. But some women try to keep up with men drinking because they want to be seen as cool or because it's funny when a woman gets drunk. In 2014, only 1 in 3 binge drinkers was asked about alcohol use and advised about risky or harmful drinking levels, according to the report by the CDC. Further, only 1 in 6 binge drinkers was asked about alcohol use and advised by a health professional who reduced their drinking. The report states males were more often than women asked about harmful alcohol use and advised to reduce it. So, I'm not surprised about that. But anybody that has gone to college, the level of drinking that goes on there. I never seen so much drinking in my life. And I'm not going to lie to you, these people could definitely drink me under the table. I was not a big, heavy alcohol, and I'm still not. I'm still not. I could literally count on my hand how many drinks I have in 1 year. I just don't drink a lot. I don't feel a desire to do it. All right. So please tell me what you think about this story, ladies and gentlemen. The truth is, white women are going to jail, and a lot of it has to do with crimes that it's connected to drug addiction. But I have to tell you, everything that I'm reading in here is similar to things that happened during the crack epidemic, but there was no consideration at all for Black people. But, ladies and gentlemen, I will leave the link to this article in the description box, but tell me what you think. Please leave your comment and subscribe, like the video, share the video, and I will see you on the next video, people. Peace, family.